Netflix and chill with myself tonight. Should I watch Human Centipede or Pokemon? Man, I hope I get lucky. Hey everybody, it's Taylor with Gun-Toting Atheist, and today we're making a case for guns. Everybody's always talking about guns. Either take away all the guns or, they're taking our guns! This video is going to be me explaining why people from both sides of the argument actually need and want guns. And hopefully by the end of this video, I'm going to convince you if you hate guns that you love guns, and if you love guns, you hate them. Just kidding about that last part. So everybody knows why conservatives love and want guns, so I'm going to start with the more liberal side of the argument and hopefully get your attention. First thing is police brutality. As you've seen in the news, instances of alleged police brutality are on the rise. And the Democrats are the ones who are always screaming things like police brutality and Black Lives Matter. They're always yelling about abuse of power, this abuse of power that the police are instating on the people. Now let me remind all of you anti-police and anti-authoritarian people that the Second Amendment was instituted for this exact reason. It was so that you have a proportional response against tyrannical abuse of power. Now of course police brutality isn't tyrannical abuse of power, it's simply abuse of power if the case is actually police brutality, but you get what I'm saying. As long as you have guns, you have leverage against this abuse of power, especially if you're rioting. Like this kitty, or this one. Now the next argument is that some people like to get angry and throw fists over disagreements. Now, liberals and Democrats seem to really be favorable towards the First Amendment, so it would make sense that you would use your Second Amendment to protect that right. Now the Second Amendment doesn't just protect your First Amendment rights, it also protects rights that are not enumerated in the Constitution. Things like the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Some redneck hillbillies or, God forbid, Black Lives Matter protesters are storming your home to force you to protest with them. That's a violation of your liberty and your pursuit of happiness. Unless, of course, you have Stockholm Syndrome. Now, of course, if you're peacefully protesting, a man in a mask comes, a man in a mask disagrees with you and wants to cause harm to you and your constituents, and videos himself with a gun while wearing a mask, talking you Saiga Marine and Black Power Ranger. You can see the link in the description below for who I'm referencing there. That's a threat to your life, and again, you have the right to protect yourself. So when you're protesting and some racist comes to hurt you at your protest while you're peacefully protesting, I don't know why you're not armed to protect yourself, because you know that there's people who disagree with you, and it would make sense to bring some sort of protection for yourself. Now I'm not saying bring Molotovs and rocks, but if you bring your concealed carry, or one in a couple people at your protest has their concealed carry, you can peacefully protest and protect your people while you're protesting. But because nobody was concealed carrying at that rally, several of the protesters got shot. So that's why liberals and Democrats should be all over the gun argument in a positive way. Now I'm going to talk about the conservative side of the argument. 1. People are territorial. That's why states like Oregon, Nevada, Michigan, Texas, and Washington all have stand your ground laws. Going back to what I said earlier, 2 of those states that I named are fairly democratic. Now, some states even have what's called a castle doctrine. Now, for instance, Utah's castle doctrine states that if somebody enters your home by force or by stealth, or you have reason to believe that they're going to commit a felony such as rape or murder, the person inflicting force or deadly force, i.e. the homeowner, is justified in doing so, and is not required to retreat before inflicting force. Which makes sense because somebody's coming into your territory. Now, a lot of animals have this same kind of mentality. Tigers and lions will kill each other if they get into the wrong territory. There's a lot of animals besides humans that are extremely violent when their territory is disturbed. So that actually kind of ties into Democrats and liberals too, because you tend to be the more scientific minds, and I know most of you on that side of the aisle believe in evolution, so it would make sense for you to understand that some humans are different from others, and some of us need to protect our home from violence or perceived threats of violence. That doesn't mean we're overcompensating for something, it just means that I don't want you in my fucking house, and if you break in or if you come in by stealth, obviously you're here to do something wrong, and you don't belong here. And I mean, seriously, it's common sense not to come into somebody's house uninvited. So if you die or get hurt, that's your fault. And many states even provide protections against the burglar or somebody coming into your home from suing the homeowner if they get hurt, or from their family suing the homeowner if they get killed. As stated earlier, the Second Amendment was intended to stop tyranny. This is something that pro-small government Republicans are all over. If the government ever got out of control, access to modern firearms gives the people, the population, a proportional response to government tyranny. Another extremely important aspect of having an armed population is a matter of strategic national defense. Any force invading the United States faces a daunting task of defeating the United States Navy with a fleet of approximately 306 ships and a projected 11 naval carriers. After that, the enemy has the option of storming the West Coast, which is a combination of urban sprawls and steep cliffs, or the eastern seaboard, which is a densely populated urban sprawl. As we all know from the last several wars that we've had, urban combat is not friendly to the invading force. Coastal approaches are backed by rugged mountain terrain. These two other options, any invading force would have to travel through Mexico or through Canada, but that has logistical and public relations implications of its own. Once an invading force has passed all of these, it still has to face the United States Army, Marine Corps, and Air Force in order to conquer us. It's also important to note that the United States' vast size makes it hard to make it landlocked, because even if it does become landlocked, the United States will still be self-sufficient on food, water, and manufacturing capabilities. Getting back on topic, Americans enjoy another benefit of the home field advantage. If our armed forces fail, and a lot of people like to throw around the phrase that nobody can defeat the United States military, which is retarded because no military is undefeatable. You put enough work and enough people into something, you can take over anything you want. But if our armed forces do fail, the American people themselves will become the militias of their hometowns and protect their local communities. This is also important because with the rise of terrorism and the fundamentalist extremists, terrorists can easily infiltrate nations, cities, and communities. You don't have to take on the might of the entire United States military, or any nation's military for that matter. They're like termites. All they have to do is hide, and they can eat the entire hull of a ship. And as we saw in Paris, a gun-free city inside a gun-free nation with strict firearm regulations didn't stop several terrorists from killing over 100 people. Now, if some of those victims had been armed, they may have been able to return fire and reduce the casualties that the terrorists inflicted. So, having an armed population reduces the response time that the locals will have against a terrorist threat. It takes police at least several minutes to arrive on scene where a terrorist attack is going on. School shootings or other mass shooting type events that the police take at least several minutes to get there, and then SWAT can be up to several hours behind them. But if you have a college campus or another location where concealed carry is allowed, and people have firearms that nobody is aware of, when a terrorist attack or a mass shooting attack does occur, then those people who are armed can return fire and either stop or at least slow down the attack in progress until authorities can arrive. Japanese Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto never actually said because there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass when asked why the Japanese didn't attack the American homeland. But the principle of this fatherless quote stands nonetheless. Now, my favorite of these arguments is that people are territorial. My next favorite is that there is a risk of government tyranny no matter how good Obama is. Or Trump, or John Cena.
And his name is John Cena!
My home is my territory, and I have the right to protect it no matter what. And if the government tells me otherwise, obviously they're acting in a fashion that is not in my best interest. Or the people in my community. I imagine it's extremely heart-wrenching and embarrassing to have to retreat and watch somebody calmly rob you. But here's a conspiracy theory for you. Some states allow frivolous lawsuits to be carried out against homeowners when a burglar is hurt or injured on their property, to encourage the homeowner to actually inflict lethal force successfully against the burglar. This be done to save state funds on penal costs for that burglar. Could also be done as a form of eugenics to prevent that burglar from producing more undesirables in the population. Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't be afraid to like and subscribe for this video and more in the future, and join us on Facebook at Gun Toting Atheist.